I'm gonna be working on lunging Flicka. So she hasn't had any lunging, she's just had the round pen work where I did 2 sessions with her. Other than that, she's just been led around and she goes in the trailer most of the time, and that's about it. She hasn't done a whole lot. She is a quarter horse cross, and she's my friend's horse, so she's just here for a little bit. I just get to play with her. But I'm just having her send out on the lunge line, and then she was at a good distance away from me and moving forward, so I went ahead and just clicked and treated there. So it's going to be very similar to when I worked with her in the round pen. I'm going to be rewarding her for very similar things. Going out on the circle away from me, like there, that was perfect. She just sent right out onto the lunging circle, so I'm going to reward her for that. She had some trouble in the beginning in the round pen that you can see in that video where she just didn't understand to go away from me and move. She just wanted to stand and wait until I gave her a treat, which didn't happen, but she knew that's where the food was coming from, so she was going to go right to the source. But I'm like, no, you have to do something to get it. So she seems like she's figured that out quite well. There she wanted to come in a little bit. I like to do it in the round pen first so she can kind of have some space to figure it out. You don't have the rope and all this excess to do. So yeah, we had a little moment here. I am not sure what the ear pinning was from. I was trying to get her to yield her hindquarters over, which she still hasn't done yet. I put quite a bit of pressure on her there. That's all I wanted was a hindquarter step over. I'm not sure why I was quite met with that reaction with her pinning her ears. Um, it could have just been the amount of pressure. I probably could have used less pressure. And then again, these are older videos once I voice over them, so these would be examples for if you wanted to do some mixing of positive and negative reinforcement. I still do a little bit, but I'm probably 80–90% positive reinforcement. So, but this is just kind of give you an idea. Everybody starts somewhere, so this is a good place to start. But that was a decent send off. I'm just raising up both hands and just making it very clear that I wanted her to go to one direction and I wanted her to move out. So that was a much better hindquarter yield. Gonna reward her for that. Let her hang out for a second before I send her back out. Get do a little bit of desensitizing. It's good that she doesn't have to be desensitized every time, but it's good that she has time in between lunging circles where she can just stand and hang out. And that does a couple of things. She can relax so she's not always going forward, forward, forward. She's not a super forward horse, but if you have one, that's definitely going to help. And then the other thing is when she's eating her treat, we don't want them to be too excited. We want them to eat the treat, chew all the way, sit for a second, and then go on. And it just brings them back to relaxation because some horses can be excited around food or anxious around food, and we just want to give them time to relax. So it's very good practice to do that. And it can be hard because you're always trying to be doing something with your horse and getting the most of the time. But I think sitting still can actually benefit both of you a lot and definitely helps get the most out of stuff. It doesn't always feel like it, but it can definitely help. So that looked quite good. She was pretty willing to move into the trot. Had a nice little hindquarter yield. I like to yield the hindquarters without being super aggressive or assertive with my body language. I'm just going to pick up on that lunge line toward their hip and put a bend in their body, and then they usually figure it out. And if I put less of a bend, I can get a downward transition. If I put a little bit more, I can get a whole hindquarter yield over. And then that directly translates to doing the same exact thing under saddle. So I'm working on something that's going to be handy in the future. It's not a completely different cue, and it just kind of benefits in that way. So she doesn't really want to go forward as much here. We got in a little trot, but it took a second for her to get in it, but I want a reward for her getting into it because in the round pen sessions, I really should have rewarded a lot sooner and more often when she did give me forward movement because that is a struggling spot for her. She wants to be more just behind your leg, not really want to go forward kind of horse, which is not bad. I'm just trying to more even her out than anything. So I'm asking her to go to my left. I'm kind of showing her this is the direction I want. The right side's closed. She's just kind of like, eh. And as soon as she leans that way, I'm just going to release, let her go forward. That's actually quite nice. I want to be mindful and aware of where the rest of my lunge line's at. I do just test on the ground, but I am aware of of it, so I'm not getting tangled. She's not getting tangled. It's not a big deal. I usually like to walk around it like this. That seems to work pretty good, and then it's just on my left leg there. But it is something that is important to pay attention to. That was really nice. Just really light and soft, and she just came right around. That was perfect. She's taking like a step or two closer to me when I do the hindquarter yield to give her her treat. I'm not real worried about it. If it were a step or two of her coming forward with her ears back, I would be definitely more worried about it. At that point, I would just send her back out onto the circle. I don't want her coming in like that. If she looked really fine, her ears were up, she was nice and slow about it, I'm okay. I don't want her to take a ton of steps forward either, though, because I don't want her too close to me. Here, she's having a little bit of a struggle with backing up, and that's again why I've moved more to positive reinforcement. It really makes things more clear to the horse. When you have pressure on their face, like, there's too many options, and you can end up hurting them that way. Like, if I'm gonna shake on the halter, I could get the horse to stop, I get the horse to back up, the horse could rear, it could go sideways, it could go left or right, it could do a lot of things. When it's following a target, it could do all those things, but it's more likely that it will follow and there's not all this pressure. Because the first instinct of the horse is to raise their neck up when you put that pressure on the halter, and then you have that tension already built in the exercise, and with the target you don't. So, I mean, I did it obviously in this video, and there are places where it can be necessary, but I'm just showing another option. So, and I'm for it for a little bit of pressure, like less than I did in this clip here, where you can just lightly shake it, and I can make that a cue as well. But I think for her that was a little bit too much. But this looks pretty good. She's moving forward into the trot a lot better, which I thought she would in this bigger arena. Sometimes for horses that don't want to go forward, the round pen definitely doesn't help the situation. Sometimes it does a little bit because they're not on a line, if the line is the issue. Sometimes it's the confinement, especially with the horse that tends to be lazy and behind your leg. They go in the round pen, they don't really have a place to go. So, and then they, if you do put too much pressure on them, they could just be mad because they don't feel like they can go forward instead of actually just going forward into that trotter canter. And then out here, it can be a little bit different. They can move forward. So I'm just doing a bit of desensitizing on my lunge line. She's pretty cool with that. She didn't really care. I'm going to send her off. Again, I'm moving off to the side here. And I do this in the beginning because I'm really showing her, okay, right door is closed, left door is open. I want you to go through the left one. Very, very like consistent and clear as I can be. And later on, I'm just going to ask from the middle of her. I'll stand even with her where I'm lined up with her head and she can go off to the side. But right now, she just doesn't understand it. So, but she, see how she just went into the trot there and it was nice and smooth. She had a little bump there because she wanted to kind of go in, and she kind of was annoyed when she couldn't come in. But she's moving much more willingly into the trot. I love that. I just think the space is definitely helping. The length of the lunge line also helps. I'll just like kind of let it slide through my hand here, and she can kind of go out toward the middle and just give her somewhere to go and not put her on a really tiny line. That's going to be, it's going to be more work and it's going to be harder for them. And they have to build up those muscles beforehand. So it's just not really fair for them to ask them to trot and to canter on these tiny lines when they haven't built up those muscles long enough. But her trot looks like it's quite nice. A lot less ear penning here. She's more flowy. So it looks pretty good here. Probably could have fed her there. I'm not exactly sure what I want. She might have pinned her ears right afterward. I'm not sure. In that case, I would have just waited until she softened, clicked again, and given her the treat while her ears were forward or her facial expression was soft. And I just kind of go down my line as I go up to her so that I still have a short line. I'm not all the way up to her and I have 10, 15 feet of line. So that is important to do. That was a nice backup for her. Really, really good. I didn't have to do a ton of pressure. She really figured it out. And that's where I like to stay at here. Like, and no, I don't like to do a whole lot more than that anymore. So there again, I'm asking her, I'm closing, in this case, the left door. I want her to go through the right. She responded really well. She looks pretty relaxed. I probably should have let her stand and chew for a bit longer. I get really goal oriented sometimes. I'm like, okay, she needs to trot, she needs to do this, she needs to accomplish things, and I need to sit more and relax more. Because once I start doing that, my horses are so much better, and then I don't have to do so much work because It's kind of already built in a weird way, but it does work. So still a little tense right here, going into the trot there. She's a little bit inverted. I don't love that, but again, this is her first lunging lesson, so she's not going to go around perfectly and have her head low. I'm going to try and keep her as relaxed as possible, but that stuff comes with time too. The head carriage part. Now she's starting to figure out to change directions, which is important. Usually when they're slower, they're harder to move their shoulders, and then they get a little bit pushier, and then that kind of is a cycle and makes it hard to get them to move out of your space. So it's important that you can move those shoulders over. She's really responsive to the lunge line though. She's not pulling or doing anything like that. She's really soft. That's a pretty decent trot transition. And I clicked her there because she was trotting forward and her ears were up. She had a nice expression. She seemed pretty relaxed. So that was quite good. I'll let her hang out here. I don't want her to get too close to me right here. There we go. Just make sure I can kind of yield her hindquarters like I did in the round pen. Her backup's looking a little bit better. She's being more responsive with that. I want to make the backup super rewarding. I like to feed that a lot, make sure that they like doing that because it is a harder lesson for them to do. And it is an important one because it's important to get them out of your space if you need to. So that one's really important. And I usually just end by doing some desensitizing. She doesn't need a ton of it. She's not real worried. She's, you know, more on the lazy side, but it's important to do a little bit, just kind of make sure and see where she is mentally. But overall, she did really well.